Hey, I'm really sorry. I'm really
We were going to make
sorry.
it work.
I have
Come.
I haven't done this in quite a while, and it wasn't like happening. So I was like frantically trying, but here you are. Here we are. So I
How
apologize
are you
to
doing?
all the people waiting.
Thank you so much for joining me, Wendy.
Yeah,
I'm so glad to have you. We were going to make this work.
yeah. So listen, I'm super excited, Mary, to talk to you about vaginal biome health and lubrication and sexual health and everything you want to ask me about. And I think it's actually the most important thing we could talk about of anything. It's my
Yeah.
favorite thing to talk about.
Yeah.
So,
So let me start off with asking for you to introduce yourself to those who are joining us. I think a lot of people already know you. I know a lot of my followers are excited about having you on today because a lot of them use your product and love it.
well, so my name's Wendy Strgar. I'm the CEO. I'm the CEO and founder of Vaginal Biome Science, and I'm the founder of Good Clean Love. And I was the CEO until recently, and now I'm the Chief Innovation Officer there, which actually means I have more work than ever, truthfully. Uh,
It never
um,
ends.
and I started this company 20 years ago in my kitchen because I probably, like a lot of your patients, Mary, was desperate to
Hmm.
find something that didn't make me sick and make me burn and create huge hours of pain for me. I wanted to stay sexually active after I had my fourth child. And, I had all the things you'd imagine after four children.
Hmm.
And, um, and the doctors would keep giving me KY and Astroglide and all the propylene glycol and polyethylene glycol and all the lubricants, right, that are made of really challenging, difficult ingredients that are hyperosmolar. I am really sensitive to that. And
Hmm.
so, I tried to go to olive oil in the kitchen for a little bit, but I couldn't take it in the bedroom and cook with it. So so that sort of really pushed me to try to find solutions, because really my sex life, which 40 years now, I've just been married 40 years this year, and I have probably one of the most amazing sex lives of anyone you've known for who's married for 40 years. And honestly, I feel like that's the experimentation and the work that I've done on the company that's created. That was the real gift of all of it, truthfully.
And that gift has been given to many women, both who are postmenopausal, who have had children, and also who have not had children, because I think a lot of women are starting to learn that lubrication is key to having a healthy, robust sex life. And lubrication, the necessity, the need of it, doesn't mean that there's any type of failure. Oftentimes those two kind of go together. If I cannot become lubricated on my own, is there something wrong with me?
I mean, that's like one of the most
Hmm.
infuriating messages of pornography, which now dominates 50% of the internet. And so it's not surprising that so many people are confused, especially men. But this idea that all women start to squirt when
Hmm.
they're turned on is like fiction, honestly. And there's so many reasons why we become dry. Anything from
Hmm.
antihistamines, having your just the wrong part of your cycle. Even when you're cycling, right,
Hmm.
there's a lot of moments in your cycle where you're not wet
Hmm.
or where you have very sticky discharge. And
Hmm.
then of course there's the multiple community states that many women are in, two-thirds of women, where they're constantly fighting, having bad bacteria, more bad bacteria than good bacteria.
Hmm.
All of those things create a need for healthy lubrication. And I do want to say that there's only 12% of the population that uses lubricants, and it's the category itself that has destroyed itself, right?
Hmm.
Because you use bad lubricants like the ones that doctors used to give me when I was most sensitive, that would make you never buy lubricant again, right?
Yeah,
um,
exactly.
so having good lubrication changes your life for sure. But if all you can find is bad lubricant, then use olive oil,
Yeah.
right? So because they're dangerous, right? They really are damaging.
So can you talk about that a little bit? What is it that makes KY so damaging? What is it that makes the parabens so damaging.
Yeah, so I think it's important to talk about it in terms of formulation
Mm-hmm.
instead of ingredients. We try never to point our finger at anyone, and because it's not just true about KY or Astroglide, right? Like the vast majority of formulations in the market today are what you call hyperosmolar, and so like I'm just going to do a quick chemistry reminder to all of us who didn't pay attention in 11th grade. Osmolality is like what happens with osmosis. So it's like, the cells are always trying to balance what's inside and outside. And so if the thing outside the cell is way heavier, that means it's hyperosmolar.
Mm-hmm.
What it does is pull all the water out of the cells. And when that's happening in your vagina, in your vaginal epithelium, all of those cells get sloughed off. And that is literally your defense mechanism for your vaginal biome health. And so, it pushes the pH way up. It becomes basically a bacteria party, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like it's a perfect environment for bad bacteria to thrive. And there's no way that the good bacteria can survive in that environment. And so that's why, and it doesn't matter, it could also be a wash. Like, it's amazing. There's a lot of people who use Good Clean Love and they also buy Summer's Eve. That doesn't make any sense to me,
Yeah.
but I recently found out it's true. And those washes do the same thing.
Yeah. Yeah. I feel like we have gone kind of the paradigm has shifted. Even in the GYN community, what we were recommending, there's a time when it's just nothing between the thighs, right? And then now you have many products out there that people are using. Um, and there are many GYNs who are recommending, products for cleansing. But
Most of them are really bad,
most of them are really
and
bad. Yep.
we're actually going to change the name of our wash to an aloe rinse. And
Mm-hmm.
I think it's an important distinction because the thing that makes something suds is called a saponifier.
Yeah.
And many of those are very toxic.
Yeah.
And so we use really expensive, very mild saponifiers. And mostly it's 65% aloe. So it's just like a very gentle rinse, which helps to like remove, when you have difficult discharges, right? And things get kind of it's like you can't just use water. So I think that's ridiculous. But because there's so much aloe in our product, it actually is very healing. So women who have all kinds of challenging conditions, Mary, like DIV, lichen
Yeah.
sclerosis, little fissures or hemorrhoids, right? All of those things, women really literally feel better.
Yeah.
I mean, that's kind of what started our studies in the vaginal biome science,
Yeah.
was that doctors would come to me and be like, why are my patients telling me they're getting better from your wash? And I'd be like, well, we could study it. And that was like, literally, I tried to get an IRB, which is what you need to do a study, for those of us who are watching. And I 6 years, and then it was finally this doctor who said, I want to understand why people get better with your wash. That was how we first got our first IRB,
And so
honestly.
you're using the word biome. I know a lot of people hear biome and they think gut biome, probiotics, gut. You all have, there's probiotics for the vagina also. I think it's really interesting that the vaginal biome. Okay, explain what the word biome means.
So, I learned some really interesting facts when I was at ACOG over the
Mm-hmm.
weekend. I met this doctor, this researcher from Argentina. He was a lovely man.
Mm-hmm.
And did you know that there's 2 kilos of microbiome in your body? And when
Mm-hmm.
he told me that, I had no idea. So understand that your microbiome starts at your sinuses, includes your oral
Mm-hmm.
biome, which really has a huge influence on your health in so many
Mm-hmm.
ways, right? Goes down to your gut. Now, of course, your gut is the center of where your biome really processes. And we know that we saw in COVID, people who don't have a gut that processes well, which is to say that their microbiome is constantly imbalanced, those people are sick with all kinds of
Yeah.
things. So we know that the microbiome, which then exits through the vaginal canal and also the rectal canal, is actually a single organ, right? It's
Yeah.
literally your immune system. Literally, if you were going to locate your immune system in your body, that's where you would locate it. And it's full of bacteria, right? Like we're made of bacteria. But it's the question is, do you have good bacteria that's outweighing the bad, or do you have bad bacteria? And it's also dynamic, right? Like it's not like you
Mm-hmm.
just get good bacteria and then you have it, right? Like, you might feel well for a few days, but then you start drinking a lot or eating bad food, and then suddenly your biome is back where it started, right? Because it's really hard to change the character and quality of your microbiome. It really takes a lot of concerted focus and attention.
It takes sleep, it takes renewing energies, it takes all of these things, and so it's not just one thing that impacts the biome, it's the collective, to your
Totally.
point. And so, and bacterial vaginosis, candidiasis, all the way even to more
PCOS,
PCOS,
yeah.
vulvodynia, all of these things can be impacted by and do impact the biome. And so if that's the case, right, where are we on that?
Well,
Where are you all?
so I think actually the umbrella term, we just recently applied to the government for one of their grants, the Joe Biden effort for women's health,
Mm-hmm.
because that's never happened to me in my entire life over 20 years, or anybody else who's been trying to work on women's health. There were 1,800 applications in less than 3 weeks, which tells you how little money has ever gone to fund
Oh, yeah.
women's concerns. But to get back to your question, when we applied, what we call it is vaginal dysbiosis, and under that there's like 10 or 12 different diagnoses
Mm-hmm.
that you're either going to get antibiotics for,
Mm-hmm.
or a fungal treatment, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or steroids, right? I mean, that's basically
That,
the top three that
yeah.
we do. And 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 none of those really respect this dynamic balance of the microbiome. And so, and in fact, even further, when I go to this bio show, like the thing that most people are concerned about is antibiotic resistance,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like it's increasing at a rate that, like, people just can't believe, right? Like, just like climate change, honestly. And who knows what's going to kill us first, truthfully, because the rate at which we are still using antibiotics when it's not appropriate, and especially in women's health, right? Like, of all the specialties, that is the slowest one to change, because we keep thinking that killing, like, Gardnerella is the answer. And in fact, Gardnerella sometimes is very innocent, except maybe
Mm-hmm.
if there's enterococcus or strep or some other bug that, like, really does need an antibiotic, but frequently it's not the antibiotic that they're giving, right? So
Yeah.
we're not really collecting enough data, and we are not really making diagnosis, which is why 2 out of 3 infections are, like, misdiagnosed frequently, right? I mean, we don't always know what it is.
Well, and I think part of the issue is how we're also educated as women, and what those expectations are for treatment. I mean, you have in the drugstore, right on hand, you can just pick up a Monistat. I have an itch, so that
Yeah.
itch is because of some type of infection. I have no idea. It needs to
And
be treated this way.
that's the only thing you can do in the drugstore when you're on your own, right? You
Mm-hmm.
can't. So the interesting thing is that yeast is a interesting side adjacent infection to bacterial vaginosis, which is actually the much more common one. And bacterial vaginosis, like we just said, we think is Gardnerella.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes, many times, Gardnerella is implicated, but many times it's other bugs that are with it that make it uncomfortable or itchy or bad smelling or all kinds of other things. Many women live with Gardnerella just fine,
Yeah.
but because we don't really collect enough data to find out what's actually happening at large in the microbiome, we're constantly using the same medicines over and over again. So, I hope I live long enough to see this change.
So what is the resolve then? Because if the resolve honestly is not just treating blind women,
No,
Resolve is not treating all
Yeah,
symptoms.
so okay, so we have Good Clean
Mm-hmm.
Love. People know about Good Clean Love, and I have this company, Vaginal Biome
Mm-hmm.
Science. Developed a lot of products over time, and we're working on some amazing new formulations that I think are gonna, like really, really push what we're able to do, like way beyond where we are right now. But right now we have a protocol that you've done in your office,
Mm-hmm.
where we have a gel and a wash, that wash we were talking about, and a probiotic, which is basically, it's a homeopathic probiotic, so we can sell it as a suppository, but it has all of the native lactobacilli in it.
Mm-hmm.
And so, what we ask women to do is to use the wash every time they wash, and to use the gel every night, and to use the suppository every 3 days. And what we find is that women have a lower pH extended over time, and when their pH is reduced in a stabilized way, even after they get their period, after they have sex, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
coming back to the regime, then what happens is that the environment is not suitable for those bad bugs,
Exactly. So
right? Yeah.
preventative. Yeah.
And also, like, if you're sick of taking antibiotics, and this is against the law for me to say this, and you're a doctor, but like, if you just feel like you've taken too many antibiotics and it isn't really moving your case very far,
Mm-hmm.
then just like stay on top of it, right?
Yeah.
And as women, I mean, our relationship to our vagina is really compromised many times, right? I mean, when they have a doctor like you, right, they become more comfortable looking at themselves, touching at themselves. I've never had a doctor like you, honestly, right? Like, it's always been
Mm-hmm.
awkward. Even when, I was in that community state when I was 15, 16 years old, and constantly having to go back for yeast medicine, because that
Yeah.
was before it was OTC, right? And it's like, telling me something? No, nothing. Just this shame of having to be treated over and over again, right? And so, if they have somebody like you in their life, then they start to get a better relationship to what they smell like. What does normal smell
Yeah.
like? Like, many women don't even know what their sweet smelling
Yeah.
vagina, which has a distinctive odor, but it's not like a bacterial odor when you're sick, right?
Yeah.
And so, but so if you're constantly covering up, like the way men use Axe deodorant, if you're constantly covering up how you smell, then you don't even know what normal is,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. No, you're right. That's a very good point. I mean, it's normalizing self. It's normalizing your own self image and being comfortable with that. That's one of the biggest things that we support in our practice.
Yeah, no, I know you do, because we've talked about it, and it should be just like basic information.
Mm-hmm.
It should be like what doctors learn when they start school, right? Is like, how do we get people to be comfortable in their own body,
Yeah.
and it seems like common sense, and yet, you should have seen some of these doctors I met at this conference. It was like basically pharma misogyny, and honestly, like, I'm not going to convince those people of anything,
No,
right? If
and that's
sold
not the
on what
part.
they're
Yeah.
sold on, like, it's like you have to want to know something different, and you have to be
Mm-hmm.
curious, and then then if you're fortunate, then you're around people like you, Mary, who like want to teach and and help women to live comfortably in their body and to know themselves.
Mm-hmm. I think the first step is just always saying there's not a way to know everything. And just
But
because you learned it years ago doesn't mean it's right today or right for that person presenting in front of you. I can tell you this. Our first line treatment for BV in the office is to do the Flourish regimen.
well,
And
I'm so happy with that.
and I have so because oftentimes it's not an infection. It is just getting used to self, right?
Yeah.
And
Always-
I've had so many people happy with that regimen, and that's where we stop it. That's where we end, because after doing that for a while, whatever discomfort they were having, that honestly was not necessarily an infection, has dissipated.
I mean, and think about it. Like, if you gave them another round of antibiotics instead,
Hmm.
they're already stripping everything away again,
Hmm.
right? And like, then you're like even in a worse situation. I mean, sometimes, like I said, you have enterococcus, or you have, strep, or bugs that people don't even expect to see in the vagina, but actually
Yeah.
do live in the vagina. Then yeah, like that should be treated with the right
Yeah.
antibiotic. It's very hard for it to get taken care of with that
Yeah.
regime.
Yeah.
I've seen it happen slowly over time with some people that I've worked with, but those are very virulent
Yeah.
bacteria, you
Yeah.
know. But for many people, most people even, if you just do something that helps you get back to what your normal is, and you pay attention and you learn that normal, you can like be training
Yeah.
yourself back there. You know?
Yeah. Can we talk about
So
our
yeah,
study that we're
please.
doing together? I'm so excited about it. Well, can we just talk about
I don't know. Maybe
not
people want to hear about sex. We could talk about sex because it's climax arc.
so
So
we've actually been in the last couple of weeks looking at different lubes, um, either from the store, drugstore, from some novelty stores online, because I think it's interesting, right? You want to sometimes spice up the
yeah,
having sex, spice up the bedroom, and using something that either has a little bit of increases sensitivity or has a little warming. That always seems like a good idea, but often until it's not.
I mean, I give my little 1, 2, 3 on great sex.
Go ahead.
Okay, so first of all, for many, many women, what the issue is isn't always dryness. And in fact, dryness when it comes to sex frequently is because you're not actually ready to be
Mm-hmm.
penetrated. Right? And so I always teach women, and so I'm a big believer in scent. And we
Mm-hmm.
make these love oils, something that I used to teach a lot more about, but I'll just give it a quick, like, 1 minute pitch. And it actually can be any oil that people want to make themselves, but whatever scent. Sometimes for men, it's cinnamon,
Mm-hmm.
clove, cardamom. I mean, there's some ancient scents that are like aphrodisiac.
Yeah.
Been used for centuries. So we make these love oils, and honestly, I can't get there without the love oil, right? So, and because any body part slippery is way sexier than that same body part dry, right? And
Yeah.
when you scent, what you're doing is you're sending these really vital messages from your nose into your olfactory bulb, which is co-located with your
Mm-hmm.
limbic brain. And
Mm-hmm.
limbic brain is what turns on when you feel desire, right? So if you go through scent to get turned on, then even if you're not wet still, but somebody's touching you, rubbing
Mm-hmm.
you, kissing, feeling you, like that experience, and taking your time, slowing down this process. Why sex is a 7-minute occupation in this country, I will never know.
Well,
you
you
know
you you mentioned it earlier, which is pornography,
I
because
mean,
it's two different things, right? Actually having sex and being sexual and porn. They're not synonymous.
and it's like, because there's so much use of porn, we've literally forgotten how to
Yeah.
with each other.
Yeah.
But I just want to say, I've been thinking about this a lot lately, and it was Anais Nin that said this, and I'll probably not quote it correctly, but attention is the most powerful and gentle form of love you can
Mm-hmm.
give somebody.
Mm-hmm. It's true.
So when somebody's like literally looking at you and paying attention to you and kissing you and feeling you, right? Like literally feeling you, and you're doing that, it is so fucking sexy,
So
right?
I'm so glad you said that, because I feel like when I am in consult in the office, one of the first things I talk about is that connection, that intimacy
Yeah.
with partner and also with self, right? And intimacy, there's so many different types of intimacy, but you can't have good sex without having intimacy.
I,
And
they, they
and
say,
many women don't really, I think, realize that foreplay is not an option. Like it's not
yeah, I mean, anybody who's being penetrated before they've had a clitoral orgasm is not ready to be
yeah.
penetrated. So
Yeah.
I'll just say that outright, right? So
Yeah.
whether it's you be masturbating with somebody and bringing yourself to a clitoral orgasm, or oral sex, or whatever do, so many women, like, people used to call and they'd say, I tried your lube, it didn't work. And I'm like, can we unpack it? And it's like, you can't just squirt it on and like insert penis and there you go, you're having good sex.
Yeah. Yeah.
Lubrication is actually for when you can't stand it anymore. That's when you put the lubricant on,
Yeah.
right? Like, you've already had an orgasm, and so when you orgasm because you're masturbating or making out or kissing or whatever you're doing, right? Then I mean, that orgasm engorges, brings
Yeah.
all this blood into the walls of the vagina,
Yeah.
right? It's like
Mm-hmm.
throbbing. There's this, it's like activated. But to try to be penetrated before that, ouch, of course that's going to hurt.
So do you think that do you think that that is a generational thing
Like,
or a complete like society thing?
for most generations never learned to have sex.
Yeah.
We think that it's like all new and like suddenly the young people like are all on top of it, but actually they have less sex than we ever had
Mm-hmm.
when we were young. And
Mm-hmm.
they don't even go to parties anymore, right? They do this weird online thing, and it's like I went on Instagram because I was trying to figure out how to do this. You could see I didn't do very well, and um, and I was just astonished, like what people are doing to get attention online, and it's such a low form of attention. It's nothing like having somebody sit with you and listen to you and touch you, and I have 20-year-old kids, and I just want to say, I don't know what we did to them, but I feel sad that there's so little like real time contact between this generation.
I mean, I think, there's been so many things that have happened in society that have prevented us from having community, right? And so it all ties into one another.
Yeah,
Understanding how to not only give, but really truly understanding how to receive and have that expectation of receiving.
totally.
So in our own corner of the world, in our own corner of medicine, talking about sex openly and helping to cure the ails of those who are not having good sex and
And
giving options.
them
Yes.
permission, right? Like weird, like we think that like it's changed so much that everybody's liberated, but honestly, the number, even young women who, like had somebody say to them, "It's good to touch yourself. It's
Mhm.
good to know where your own pleasure." Right? Like you don't want a partner to give that to
Yeah.
you. I mean, of course, you do over time, but if you don't have access to that yourself, then you're going to forever think that person owns that part of
Yeah.
you. No, that's like something you give to someone
Yeah.
else. And so still, like, there's so much work to do in sexual education. It's crazy. And really, I really believe firmly, I really, really believe that if only one thing was different in the world and people really had intimate, loving, orgasmic sex, the whole world would be different.
Oh, well, yeah. Yes. I mean, that we know one of the things that sex brings without intimacy, without love, is an unbalanced control.
Yeah,
I mean, if you're really talking about it, there is liberation. I do believe people should have the right to perform and act and be the way they feel the most comfortable. But I think there's something that we lose when we don't talk about how sex and love and sex and intimacy go hand in hand.
I mean,
And
the thing is that sex for a long time, and I think it's shifting back, partly because so many women are getting choked on first dates, which is,
Mhm.
um, but it's like for a long time, women thought and men thought, young men thought they could just divorce relationship from sex,
Yeah,
that it could be transactional and everybody could have it be good. But truthfully, the rate of orgasm plummeted, right? Like,
yeah,
especially for women. That's who, I mean, even in relationships, many women will say, oh, he liked it, so that it was
yeah,
good. Still they say that,
yeah,
right? Um, but no, it's like really feeling like your pleasure, and I don't care how long it takes, however long it takes, they should want to be there for that,
yeah.
you know. and believing that you deserve that, right? Like, I mean, men or whoever you're making love to, I always make love to a man, so I refer to men, but like whoever your lover is, like when you're exploring and achieving like pleasure in that deep visceral way,
Mm-hmm.
you're actually giving it to them too,
Yeah.
right? Like this deep energetic exchange. And so like anybody who's there just for their own pleasure, that's not, I mean, I don't even want to be in the room there. I tell people, take some other lubricant with you because, you know, like, good. I always say, don't waste it on somebody you don't love because, because, even, I mean, whatever, it's like, how can you like find someone or let somebody see this most vulnerable part of you if they
Yeah.
don't even take your
Yeah.
coffee,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And it's going to be weird to like wake up next to them. Like, I don't know.
Is that how you came up with the name Good Clean Love?
Um, actually, it used to be Good Clean Fun, and then I was infringing on someone's patent because I was so young and naive, I didn't know it. And I just bought $25,000 of packaging, and I thought, damn, now this is the end of my business. And then, then it just came to me, in conversation, maybe it's not Good Clean Fun at all. Maybe it's Good Clean Love. So, it's serendipitous.
You see how that works. I think it's one of the most amazing names. When we first moved to this area and I first started my group practice,
Yeah.
I received a small box from your company of samples, and I thought, who did this? It's an amazing name because, again, for me, it brings it back to just that intimacy is important. Intimacy, sex is not dirty, it's not bad. It is something that should be celebrated and something that we should
And
put at the forefront.
in this fight for clean right
Mm-hmm.
now because Gwyneth Paltrow took Good Clean Goop, and and she's not clean really. Like, I don't want to get into it because we're gonna be in a lawsuit with her, but like what this idea of clean is so meaningful to me. Not just like that we don't use toxic ingredients, which is how most people sort of think accounts for clean, but like when you really use a clean product,
Mm-hmm.
that means it worked for
Yeah.
you, right? That means it was efficacious, that it
Yeah.
didn't harm you, right? That there was
Yeah.
nothing else going on that was like, like dangerous, right? Like, so, and also the idea of clean is that it's ethical,
Yeah.
that like it's just,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So, we're a B Corp, we use, bioplastics, everything we can do right, we do right. And, that's been my ethos since the beginning. So for some celebrity brand to come along and make up words like clinical, it's like, no, I'm not going to do
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
I don't know what's going to happen with that, but I'm excited to fight for clean right now because it's really important, and so important when it comes to vaginal biome
Yeah.
health and sexual health.
Well,
It's the most important, the most
it's
sensitive
the
of the body.
it's the most important, and the other most important thing is being able to back up what you say, able to back up what you have on your bottle. And
Yeah.
for us in medicine, we want to be able to back things up with studies. We want to be able to back things up with data. We want
So
to be able
I'm
to
going to
say,
talk about a study actually.
so we have another study coming out with Wendy and her crew, and I'm so excited that we will be enlisting our patients and those who also want to be a part of the study to collect data that will help move the needle forward in women's reproductive health, women's sexual health, women's health as a whole. What we've been talking about today is understanding the biome, right? And so how do you understand it without having samples of biome to assess, to test, and to really understand and correlate symptoms along with what you find on the slide?
I mean, I think what's really going to be exciting and interesting to see in this study, Mary, is that, not only are we going to be collecting microbiome data, from, 1,500
Mm-hmm.
women, and we're going to look at it both through a qPCR lens, where
Mm-hmm.
we're going to get counts, and we're also going to look at it at next generation sequencing, where you get like relative abundance of more things, you know, and and so comparing that data, which has never happened, but most important actually is going to be getting diagnostic codes
Yeah, exactly.
from you and from other practitioners we're working with on all kinds of conditions like cancers, you know, urogenital conditions, you know,
Mm-hmm.
current UTIs, you know, these recurrent dysbiotic, you know, conditions, BB, you know, all kinds of epithelial conditions like lichens and
Yeah,
DID, right? Like a lot of flare conditions. So yeah, we're going to collect data across 12 different diagnoses, and we'll have enough data that it'll be statistical. It's going
yeah,
to teach us so much,
yeah,
honestly. Learn so, and actually the most amazing thing, 2024 and a database like that does not
yeah.
exist in the world.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, again, it comes back to where money has been put historically for evaluation. And just what we were talking about earlier, we're treating symptoms that we don't even really understand what the origin is, and if the origin is truly pathologic or not. And so this is going to help move that needle forward in how we're able to truly diagnose genital conditions, and not just diagnose, but give adequate treatment. Because again, some things don't need antibiotics,
Right,
antifungal, or
right.
steroids. Steroid use prolonged is not healthy. Steroid use prolonged is not going to help your sex life. You know, steroid
Or
use prolonged is
of your
not.
body, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
You know, it's like all of these things, like truthfully, anywhere you use an antibiotic, there really isn't such a thing as local antibiotic
Yeah.
when we go back to remember that the microbiome is a single unit, right?
Yeah.
And so, you know, we know that when people are really, really compromised with their gut biome, it's really hard for those people to get better vaginally,
Yeah.
right? And the same goes, like, you know, what happens in your gut also happens in your mouth,
Yeah.
know? And I mean, so it's like really taking this microbiome science seriously, which I think is the future of
Yeah.
medicine. You know, if I'll be alive to really see it completely come to its full fruition, but you know, it's the thing that motivates me every day is like at least contributing, right? Being of service to the
Yeah.
science.
You'll be here, Wendy. It's all connected. And I'm so glad that you were able to come on with us, and also grateful for you and letting my group join your team in these
No,
efforts.
Mary, I love you, and I'm so excited to work with you. We've got a couple of other things. Kim keeps cooking up new ideas of like trying to understand this from another angle, you know. And so I'm going to be back to you shortly on that. But you know, you're an extraordinary doctor,
Well, thank you.
and you're
Thank you.
so motivated by all the right things in terms of the work you do, just even this podcast, you know. And so I'm honored, literally
Oh,
honored,
thank
that
you.
you like want to talk to me, but that you really think that some things that I'm doing are meaningful, you know.
They're very meaningful, and you are very meaningful to a lot of people. Thank you for what you do.
And
Before we leave, can you just give one tidbit, one piece of advice? And you given a lot of pieces of advice, but one piece of advice that you would want those to know, those women that have joined us, those with vaginas that have joined us, to know about their biomes.
yeah, so I mean, you know, microbiome health is dynamic, right? And it's changing all the time. Every time you cycle and you get your period, you're kind of resetting your microbiome again. Every time you have sex, you're resetting your biome again.
Mhm.
So actually, I saw a funny meme somebody sent me, and it's like, is this guy worth wrecking my microbiome for? It's a good question, right? Like, do you like him enough? Because then you're going to reset, right? And so, as so long as you're thinking of it as a dynamic environment that you want to learn to pay attention to and learn to understand, right? Like, I think we have the most effective products on the market at Good Clean Love, a vaginal gel, an aloe rinse
Mhm.
called Balance. And this BioFresh suppository, and, you know, we've done a lot of studies, although we don't quite have statistical numbers yet. And we know that it actually does help women to keep a reduced pH over time.
Mhm.
And learning now how to really help them resituate the bacteria in their biome, which is a hard thing to do because of biofilm and all kinds of other things. But really keeping a consistently low pH, I think, has a lot to do with stopping your symptoms of all these conditions
Yeah.
that we're talking, stopping the reoccurrence of bacterial infections and even fungal infections, right? So, like, just smell yourself, know yourself, touch yourself, and use really good products that, that have scientific
Yes.
foundation is what.
Exactly. Don't skip. Don't skimp and don't skip.
Yeah, and our products are way less expensive than so many brands on the market that have like pretty fake science.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think you could trust good, clean love, and I'm constantly trying to figure out how to do it better. So I really and working with people like you, Mary, that's how
Yeah.
we do it.
Yeah. And I appreciate that. I mean, what more can you say as a consumer than to see the founder and CEO say, I care and always try to do it better, always work harder. And that's really
I mean,
encouraging.
that's all there is in life, right?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
how can we come to every day and actually really give it our attention, and care for it, right? Like the days, the people in it, in our
Yeah.
life, the things that we get to do with our hands. It's so short.
Yeah.
It's so life.
Well, I'm glad that we get to work together.
Yeah,
And it's,
and I'm sorry that I was late to this.
oh, you're fine. You're fine. I just figured out how to do it myself a couple weeks ago. So we're all learning. If anyone on wants to come and join our study that we have going with Good Clean Love and Wendy, please just message us, DM us. You can email and you can also call our office 757-916-5348. We'll be having more information on our socials coming up in the next few weeks. Thank you, everybody, for joining. Wendy, I'm going to be talking with you soon.
Yeah, you
So thank you.
take care now.
Have a good one.
You too.
Bye.
Bye.